Good evening, friends. Tonight we are going to talk about the importance of breath work, and we are going to talk about some ways that we can incorporate breath work into our stress relief as well as our fitness regimes and programs, and the benefits that we can get from just breathing. So, what is breath work and why do we care? Breathwork is just a fancy way of saying breathing on purpose. It's when we're breathing intentionally that we can regulate our physiological as well as our psychological arousal levels and bring our bodies back under control and back to a state of calm and healthiness, all by just taking a minute, sitting down, and breathing. And so if you work with me or have listened to any of the other webinars I've posted, you know that, well, you know two things. You know that I'm a yoga person, and you know that I am a person who believes strongly in the simplicity of ancient wisdom and things that were done by our ancestors and bringing those into our lives today. So including things like what we eat, and how we move our bodies, what types of exercise we choose, as well as breathing. So, breath work is one of the foundations of yoga. Yoga, which is a centuries old practice, right? And in yoga, we refer to breath as prana. So, and that literally translates to the life force. And just as activities for our minds influence our breath, so does our breath influence our state of mind. And this is one of the main principles of any yoga studio or class that's worth showing up to. You're going to be focusing on your breath and you're going to be doing some breathing. So this idea comes from the ancient texts of yoga, and the main yoga guy that put all of the sort of ideas of yoga into one place is named Patanjali, and he wrote the Yoga Sutras, which is basically he pulled together a bunch of different practices and philosophies on the study of yoga that were going in different regions at the time. We're talking like 200 BC to 200 AD, or current era, before current era, however you want to say it. A long time ago, right? Patanjali is one of our ancient friends who wrote down several things about breathing, but importantly, he talks that pranayama is the conscious, deliberate regulation of breath, replacing unconscious patterns of breathing. The regular practice of pranayama reduces the obstacles that inhibit clear perception, and that by focusing on our pranayama or our breath, we can achieve progress towards our goals by shutting out all of the chaos and the nonsense that is going on in our life and just bringing it back to our breathing. That is not Patanjali in that picture, but you get the idea. So one type of breath work is breathing meditation. This is what probably most of us think about when we think about breath work. It's intentionally attending to all of the sensations that we are experiencing when we're breathing. So we want to sit quietly, and we want to take deep breaths, and we want to recognize the sensations that we're experiencing in our body. So we can feel the breath coming into our bodies, filling up our lungs, and also exhaling from our bodies, and just being aware of what that feels like in our bodies and how we experience breath is going to slow us down and help us really get in the right frame of mind for doing the breath work and getting our thoughts under control. It helps us become more aware of what we're experiencing in the present and shifts our attention away from cognitive activity that is causing us stress and anxiety. So we really want to spend some time just thinking about the breath. When you'll maybe recognize terms like focus on your breath or bring it back to your breath, right? That's what they mean. They're just, how does it feel to be alive and be breathing? So another way that we can incorporate breath work into our daily lives is by synchronizing our breathing to our body work. So by body work, I mean our mobility work, our yoga, Tai Chi, our intentional body work where we connect breath to movement, right? It's very important to have some type of this type of body work that you're doing to really help with your stress and anxiety, and also to help get deep into your muscles that may be stressed and tired and just overuse from working out too much or just stiff from sitting too long. So by paying attention to our breath and using long, deep exhale during our body work, such as foam rolling, we're going to help our muscles relax. Also, during mindful movement practices like yoga or Tai Chi, we're going to maintain continuous, calm, deep breathing that we're going to connect to our movements. So in yoga in particular, we're going to inhale with expansive movements and exhale on contracted movements. So for example, if we'll just take the example of a mountain pose, right? Which is just your simple standing up tall. So we're going to inhale on the rise to the mountain, right? And then we're going to exhale down as we contract our muscles back to our heart center. So that would be an example of how that looks. So we're inhaling up and exhaling out, right? Then that is going to help us with our flexibility, and it's going to encourage our joints that to go beyond sort of where they are normally. When we're able to actually connect our breath to our movement, it's going to give our body a sense of calm where we can actually go beyond our normal movements in everyday life. Our breathing can also improve our exercise techniques and our recovery. So when we breathe in between sets of intense exercise, that's going to give us more energy. It's going to help us recover quicker. It's going to get more blood to our body. And it's the way that we're going to do that is take deep, full inhales and exhales. We're going to think as we're doing that about drawing the space between our rib cage and our pelvis together. So we're going to kind of contract as we're exhaling and expand as we're inhaling, but really paying attention to that particular area of our body intentionally so that we do get the air and blood to the areas that we need to while we are in a active rest or active recovery position during more intense types of workouts. So by doing that, what it's going to do is trigger our thoracic pump, which when we breathe deeply like this during rest intervals, it's going to improve our recovery, because in the same way that we are filling our lungs with air, that pressure is also bringing blood into the right side of our heart, which is allowing our heart to pump more blood out of our body. So not only is getting air back into our lungs, but it's getting blood back into our heart, which can then be distributed to our body better, helping with our muscles recovering, helping keep us mobile and working out for longer periods. Breathing to improve exercise technique and recovery also relates to our core work. So we are going to have fuller core activation when we are paying attention to our exhales, right? When you're close to fully exhaled is when your muscles in your core area are going to be the most engaged. So when we're in positions like a plank or a hollow hold, what we want to do is make sure we get all the air out. We're going to intentionally exhale all the air so that all of our muscles and spine and bones can realign with that feeling and that position of having no more air in you, and will be able to then stabilize your core, making that work more effective. And we all want a more effective core work. And the final way that breathing can help us improve exercise technique and recovery is for those of us that may have pelvic floor issues. So there are very specific breathing exercises that you can work with a pelvic floor expert or a physical therapist, or even my chiropractor, for example, had me doing some of these types of movements where you just do some very intentional breath work that then connects to your expansion and contracting, relaxing of your pelvic floor area. And when you tie those two together, it will really help to strengthen your pelvic floor if you are having those problems. And don't just think that that is a problem for people who've just had babies, because it's not. It persists for a long time. We can also calm down and lower our anxiety by paying attention to our sort of calm down breathing, we're going to call it, the breathing that we're using intentionally to manage our stress and anxiety. So one example is a slow exhale. We're going to imagine that we're blowing up birthday candles or blowing up a balloon, right? So it's just a big, long exhale until all the air is out of your lungs. And then we're going to pause for a minute or two, letting our whole body just relax when all of that air is out. Then just go back to normal breathing and see how you feel. And if you need to do it again and again and again, we're going to do that. But it's a big, strong, long, intentional exhale. Another technique is called 5-finger breathing. That is where we lift up one hand and just trace our fingers. So as we trace up our finger, we are going to inhale, and then as we go back down, we're going to intentionally exhale. And we're going to go as slow as we want to, and just focus on up, inhale, down, exhale. And you can throw a mantra in if you want to. Inhale positivity, exhale doubt might be one. Inhale confidence, exhale doubt again, whatever. You can also tie that to a mantra that you might be using, and that can actually add even more stress relieving properties. And finally, our final calm down breathing to lower our anxiety is the box breathing, which I think we've talked about before. If we haven't, it's very common. I'm sure you've probably heard of it or done it before. It's when you take a big inhale to 4 counts, then you hold for 4 counts, exhale 4 counts, hold for 4 seconds at the bottom. So, and then just do it over and over again until you are calm down, until you are sort of in sync with that breathing. And you can do this one anywhere. The same chiropractor I was talking about suggested doing box breathing in the car. Every time you hit a stoplight, do box breathing until the light turns green, and then go on your way. And that was great advice. And I try to still do that at least a couple times every day when I'm driving on my commute to work. So finally, we want to experiment with our breath. We want to check in with our heart rate monitor if we have one, set timers, see how our breathing is really impacting our heart rate and our overall health. A lot of the tracking apps that we use, the Whoop, the iPhone tracking app, have meditation as an activity you can select. So if you go and select that activity, then you can watch your heart rate as you're meditating, as you're intentionally breathing. If you don't like the word meditation, that's fine. And you can actually I've actually watched mine fall like 20 beats per minute over a 15-minute meditation. So it's kind of fun to check that out and see if it's actually making a difference for you. And then it's also a great idea to practice over time when you're in less stressful situations, so that when you get in those more intense situations, more stressful times, you will be able to self-regulate. You will know already in advance that you know how to bring yourself back to a state of calm and relaxedness, and you can actually you can practice that and have some confidence in yourself that you know you can handle whatever the stressful situation is, because you can get control of your breath. So as always, I want to encourage you to experiment with breath work. It's important, it's really helpful, And again, anything that has been done for centuries and centuries and centuries by ancient people like Patanjali and his friends back who were in the early days of the yoga movement, there's got to be something to it, right? So what's the worst thing that happens if we try? It probably works, is the best thing that happens. And probably even the worst thing that happens is that it's going to actually work. So that's not such a bad thing, right? Okay, if you have questions on this, please hit me up. If you need yoga recommendations or meditation class recommendations, please let me know as well. All right, just breathe.